Welcome to episode 27 of Whole Lot of Wolves. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
And I'm Paula Page.
And we've got a new voice to introduce this week, Joe Delluis from Connecticut. And we are put in touch with you by our friend and regular podcast guest who lives nearby, David Copey. So, Joe, welcome and tell the listeners how your Wolves support came about.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm actually really happy to be here. My Wolves support came about in a long story. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I typically watch a lot of hockey. That's like my favorite sport to watch. I'm huge into the NHL. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so we had the Penguins. I was a season ticket holder for the Penguins for 12 years before I moved here, and I watched them through being in last place to winning a Stanley Cup. So that's like where I started. And when I first started working in Pittsburgh in a research lab, I was pretty young. I think I was like 19 or something. And I had met one of my coworkers that was in the lab with me, and he was a really big soccer fan. And he was like, "Oh, do you want to come watch Premier League with me this weekend?" He was a big Manchester United fan. And I was like, "I don't really watch Premier League. I don't really watch soccer in general." And he's like, "Come on, it'll be fun. It's Saturday mornings." And I was like, "Look, if you watch hockey with me and be my hockey buddy, then I'll watch Premier League with you." And he was like, "Fine." That was cool. And we got along really well. And we were watching a lot of soccer together because that was his team. This was like 09. So like when they won the triple, like it was a great time to watch Manchester United. So as it went on, we even went over to England. He wanted to go to some of the games because I was taking him to a bunch of Penguin games. He's let's go to Old Trafford. So we went over there. We saw a couple matches, and I really started to grow to love the sport. When he left, we moved to Connecticut, and he left Connecticut. He got his PhD, so he left. And I wasn't watching as much Premier League because he wasn't around to drag me into it. And so when we were here, my wife, Rachel, she was a bartender in New Haven. And her schedule was like she would work Friday nights, Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings. So a lot of the time she wouldn't be home until the afternoon of Saturday and Sunday. And I was home on the mornings, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw Premier League back on. I know all these teams and stuff. Like, this is the perfect thing to watch. There's nothing else that's on in that time frame. So like live sports is great. So I was watching Premier League, and this was just when we had come up from championship. And I was like watching Manchester United because that's like my buddy's team and that's the team I've seen before. But like every time I was watching, for some reason, Wolves had a lot of NBCSN games. Like they were playing like a ton in the mornings. And so I would have games on in the background, and I'm just watching whatever they put on NBCSN. It doesn't matter. And they were talking about how they just came up, and they were super exciting to me because it was a team that was never out of it. As I was watching, you see them in 3, 4, 5 matches. I was seeing that even when they're down by 2 with 70 minutes left, they would come back and score a late goal. And like they would like press and counter really quick. And that was like my hockey team, right? Like it was like a vision and a team that wasn't the most money and was struggling. And I was like, I can really see them coming up on the rise. It looks like you guys have players that want to play, that are getting playing time, and really just there's going to be an evolution to this. And I was like, okay, so this is fun to watch. So I started watching them more and more, and then I just started learning about Nuno and all the different players that were coming in and the ties to Portugal and just like everything that was playing out. And I saw so many resemblances to the stuff that I like in sports that I was like, you know what, I can get behind this. And I've been watching Wolves ever since, man.
Sounds good. So Penguins, that's in the Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr days, eh?
Yeah. So those were that was like the era when I was a kid, is I had Lemieux and Jagr, and that's what I grew up with. And the Penguins went through a drought, and we were last place team, and it was really bad in Pittsburgh. Like, the team was so bad, and nobody like cared that they had this promotion that was like student rush. And every game, if you went and waited in line and you were a student of anything, you would just show your student ID, and for $20, they'd give you the best seat that they had available. And that $20 would get you in, and we would sit 4 or 5 rows back from the glass for $20. And we thought this was great. But we were in last place, and we lost 18 games in a row that year. It's like something ridiculous. But it was still fun to see the team and support the team. And like, we remembered how great it was. And then we lucked out, got Sidney Crosby, got Evgeny Malkin. And when that happened, I was like, look, we should just get tickets because like I can see that this is going to turn around. And it happened. So it was a great experience for me.
Hopefully Wolves can have a similar turnaround start in the summer.
I hope.
Because I think they're going to need it. Today's game, I feel like the 3-2 score in the loss to West Ham was a little misleading considering how awful it was early on. I know when they fell down 3-0, I looked at Paul and I was like, oh, this should be a fun podcast tonight. Paul, I will let you open up with your thoughts as always.
I thought the commentator towards the end of the first half had it spot on when he said it could have been 5-3. And I think it could have been 5-3 both on the first half and the sum of the whole game into the second as well, which I'm not down and out about it. I'm not beating myself up. I think circumstances dictated a lot of what went on tonight. Mainly to kick off with the negative was just how fragile we were at the back. But then we'll come on to it later. Obviously, the news about Johnny. How did we know when that happened yesterday? They could have been set up to play completely different formation wise, or they may have been going with a 4 anyway, and he would have been probably more solid at left back in that 4. So you don't know. Completely put a spanner in the whole works. I think that news did. And in terms of the negativity when it comes to that 4 at the back, it was just two things stood out for me that pretty much on 3 of the goals, someone at least should have took a booking and took him out.
Yeah.
The build, especially the Lingard one, it would have been horrible. It would have been cynical, but we were doing that. That's the type of stuff that Ryan Bennett was doing. He was cute with it. That's an old school centre half. Take one for the team, pick up a booking and play accordingly going forward. Neves was renowned for it, and that was missing, the little nastiness. And the other thing for me that was missing was just the nous of Saiss and Cody's, that centre-back partnership that, like Antonio's run, that could have been handled better. The run could have been checked. Someone could have gone to a better position. I think we're just feeling the issue that we've got 2 centre-backs that aren't centre-backs, they're midfielders or a converted sweeper. That's what our downfall is. If Nuno persists with the 4, I think bring Bolly back in and that strengthens it a little. I think I'd probably like to see Bolly on the left and Cody on the right if they keep on going for a 4 through the end of the season. Just see how that plays out. I thought Antneri did okay, good with the ball at his feet, got into some good positions attacking wise. But then we flipped the dialogue going forwards. I thought we were great. Willian, first half, he did well holding the ball up and in his link-up play. And that chance in the first few minutes, we'll keep on going round to it time and time again. But if that fell to Raul, he's putting that away.
Yeah.
And the one towards the end of the first half where he forced the keeper into the save, it came out to Neto and Neto skied it, put it wide, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Those are the type of chances that go in or we get a bit of luck one of these weeks and it hits Neto's knee and goes in rather than trying to place it. So I'm not doom and gloom. I'm not looking over my shoulder. I think if he persists with 4 at the back, it's going to be entertaining against these teams in the lower half. And we're going to pick up 2 or 3 wins and it's going to be quite fun to watch. So that's the spin that I'm putting on it.
So I saw something interesting. This a tweet from Ryan. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name. Leister. He's from Birmingham Live. And this kind of goes to what you were saying, Paul. He tweeted this at halftime. Other teams make yellow card fouls to avoid 2 of the 3 goals. So being nice/not savvy has cost Wolverhampton. I thought that was perfect, especially that 3rd goal. That was one where we were watching going, somebody make a foul.
And then to a certain extent, we're looking at Rui again, and you can't get beat on your near post like that. And whether it's magnified this season just because there's more spotlight on him, but it just seems like his errors have all come concentrated in this season pretty much. He's had a couple these past 2 years beforehand, but he's starting to rack up some points dropped on his account. So maybe that's one to keep an eye on going forwards as well.
At the beginning of the match, I was watching it and I was like really impressed with the possession and the chances that they were creating. This weird counterattack that was just like blowing up the defense was like such a surprise for me. Like, I get, you said you have guys that are midfielders playing center back and stuff like that. They just look lost. Like, they didn't look like they were communicating or something. It's just like everybody was in like the wrong position and they were kept crossing each other. That was very strange to me. But I liked the pace that they had at the beginning of the match. It's something that we didn't see in long stretches after Jimenez got injured, right? Like, they would just sit back and just try to play defense for a while and not try to score. And knowing that like the mentality wanted to shift and you're trying to get players that are a little bit faster and want to be more aggressive, I was like, that's good. Like, when I'm watching this now and after the injury, I'm just thinking of like the optimism for the future, not so much this season, but just like where this can go. And everything looks positive to me. So even when we like lose a match like this, like the fact that they didn't give up, right? Like, you go down 3-0, you could have easily just sat there and just, this could have gotten really out of hand. But like, you score a late one, you have the corner, you almost score again at the end of the half. If you, like you said, Paul, if you put the first one in the first minute, like, the game's completely different. And then in the same sense, you score that one at the corner at the end of the half, but you go 3-2 into the half. That could have been a little bit different too. I wasn't completely disappointed today. I'm always pretty optimistic about the team. And honestly, I wrote this season off, not written it off. But I know that as long as you're not getting relegated this season, you can't put too much emphasis in this. It's a pandemic season again. It's like weird circumstances. We have all this like family stuff with nobody being allowed to travel, and the injuries are just like stacking and stacking. So yeah, I wasn't disappointed in the game today. I was actually happy with what I saw, and I agree like with what you said. I think that coming from the rest of the table, like in the rest of the matches that we have coming up, that we should squeeze out a couple wins and it should be a fun end of the season. That's all I want. It's just some positivity for the end of the season. Get a couple wins at the end and everybody will be happy. At least I will.
So speaking of injuries, there were 3 guys missing from the starting 11 today, and that was Moutinho, who was out with a groin injury. I think they already knew that one was going to be coming, though. But then the 2 that I think caught him off guard really was Willy Bally testing positive for COVID, and then Johnny, just what horrible luck, tore his ACL and MCL in the same knee that he just came back from. Paul, you and I were talking during the game, and I said, physically, that's an injury you can come back from, but I don't know. Mentally, that's going to be tough for him to ever trust that knee again after back-to-back ACLs, same knee.
I've heard a lot of sports people say exactly what you just said, that a lot of the time the recovery from the injury is not so much the physical recovery, but just like the trust that you put into it, and can you overcome that? So I don't know. I feel bad for the guy, man. That really sucks. Like, same knee twice now. I hope it's not the end for him. That's all I can hope.
Yeah, he seems like a warrior and a guy that goes into battle and always gives 100%. And to that point, the psychology around it's going to be massive, because that's the game he plays. It's all about that defense and getting stuck in and playing hard. So if he has got trust issues now around that knee, then yeah, it's going to knock his performance. So hopefully there's never a good knee injury, especially to that same knee again. But hopefully surgery goes well and all of that starts out positive, and he just starts to build on it and come back step by step. And maybe I don't think that, obviously they didn't rush him back. It had nothing to do with rushing back from the previous injury, but maybe I think with this one, if everything goes according to plan, they just really take his time and ease him back into it and build up that confidence psychologically just as much as working and getting the knee back to 100%.
Yeah, they were almost forced to put him in as quick as they did this year, just because Marsal got hurt again, and then Aït-Nouri has been up and down, which you expect from a young kid. But yeah, I don't necessarily think him coming back when he did affected this knee injury. I just think it's bad luck.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
Again, it's one of these injuries throughout the season now. It's always been mentioned that Wolves had such a good record and great backroom staff and all of that. and it's that It's not, apart from Mr. Glass, Marcel, we haven't had those players that have been injured so much. It's these killer ones like Johnny's knee, Raoul's that was totally out the blue, but such a crippling injury. What happened? You can't account for that type of stuff. Odd niggles here and there, yeah, it happens. It's game management and it's managing workload, and you got to watch out for those hamstring strains or tears and manage that accordingly. But it's been these real severe injuries that have certainly cost us a season for sure.
And how much different do we look when Bali is in the lineup and not? Like, missing him, didn't we miss him at part at the beginning of the season too? And it was just like, as soon as he came back, it seemed like it really locked down there. So I don't know. I just feel like we have completely different defense when he's there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you can get away with Cody and Saiz when you're running a back three. I don't think when you're running a back four, you can get away with both of them. I still think Cody can do a back four as long as he's beside like an enforcer, a really smart guy. And him and Saiz are the same type of player, and that doesn't work back there. I want to see Kilman get a shot beside Cody in a back four.
What did he do to fall out?
I was going to ask that next too, because he had been doing really solid. Okay, I get he's a young guy and most of his time's been in a back three, but you sign the guy to a contract extension. Let's see if he can do a back four. Otherwise, that needs to be the priority in the summer.
Out of all of those, he's the out and out centre back. It's not like he's a converted midfielder. That's been his position. So I think a part of that is Nuno wishing to trust his generals a little, especially through that bad run of form, that he wants guys in there that are more established and have got the experience to really try and grind out results and things like that. But I think, there's some scope that let's get these couple of wins, and then if he is looking at a four, let's put Kilman back in and see how it works.
Well, and of course the four isn't even really going to work well at all, even if you do have great center backs, if we get midfield play like we had today. I know Donker scored to redeem himself a little bit, but oh goodness, he was a mess defensively. And Neves, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. Neves, you want to talk about somebody who was just getting abused on defense. My goodness, and even his passes were way off today.
Yeah, I think they both had a stinker first half. Better in the second, and then Donker seemed to be doing more of the work in the second half and did a pretty good job. But that to me was where the issue was, the breaks that we were getting caught, and that's where it was stemming from. And no one to cut out the foul, or they weren't in a great position. And was it the second goal? And it was like 5 of them chasing him. And
the third goal. Yeah. That was embarrassing. And Neves had 3 shots to get a professional yellow.
Yeah.
And didn't do it.
So again, what you put that down to, I don't know. Is it the issue of that turnaround, not knowing the team, or were they set up differently prior to yesterday and Johnny's injury, and they were still getting used to it again, a new formation and slightly different role? But yeah, Neves has been our guy, especially in that defensive midfield role, and he's really stood out in some games. Just goes from those big peaks to sometimes those low valleys like that first half was today.
And you have to wonder if maybe the international break affected him at all. I don't know. It's hard to say, because if you always looked at it with the international breaks with Raul Jimenez, anytime he came back from an international break, usually that first game he was not good. Now, that also involved traveling overseas, which played a part in it. But I don't know. Yeah, Nuno's got to do a really good job of figuring out which guys are good to go immediately after an international break and which guys maybe need to sit back a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. It feels weird, but like we saw it when we had the stoppage for COVID too. It just seems like some guys come back and they're like really refreshed, and some are just like very flat for a few games. And I don't know how you spot that out, but you have to figure it out at some point.
I mean, it was good to see Podence back in the starting 11.
Great.
You could tell his passing was a little bit off today still, but he still had a couple little clever moves. Do you still want to see more of him starting or coming off the bench?
I liked everything I saw from Podence today. I think that he was like really a force to drive this pace at the beginning of the game. He was all over the place. He was trying to create chances, and that's all I want. So for me, it was great to have him back. I feel like we were really missing that. It let Neto play a little bit more free than it didn't feel like there was a lot of weight on him with Podence in the lineup too. And then also then when you have those two working well, then I think Adama plays his best because like he doesn't have to carry the team. There's like this weird dynamic when it's just Neto and Adama that like they're both just trying to run up the wing and cross in, and I don't know if they get like really tired from it or what, but it doesn't seem to work as well when they're more free flowing and they like take up a lot more space. It seems like we get a lot more play inside the box from that.
It's a really good point because I thought we were much better offensively in the first half. Adama played great, and obviously the assist for the goal was Adama that we know and love. And then second half with Podence coming off, I said to Josh that it looked like a distinct 4-4-2, and it took them so long to get their groove back in the second half, where if Podence had still been on, I reckon we'd have carried that momentum on from the first half and scored a lot earlier and could have done something more points-wise in that game. So I think it took a while for us to catch our groove in the second half with him missing, again trying to figure out a different shape to play with, and that kind of stunted our momentum somewhat.
And of course, we have to give big props to Fabio Silva. Just fantastic goal. That's the type of play you want to see with that's what they hope Wolves bought. And just really great run, great anticipation, great finish. That was, man, we need to see more of that.
I think he always has really good positioning. Like every time I watch him, even if he doesn't have a nice last touch, we've seen him miss a couple just like an inch wide here and there, maybe a little high, but like he's always in the right place. And that's what's so promising to me. And the kid's he's 18, 19, right? Like he can work on this other stuff to get through this. I see people down on him a lot, and I'm just like, he's still really young, and you can't teach the awareness. You can teach him how to finish. Like he can practice that, but like knowing where to be is a completely different thing. And that is the talent that I want to see. I think it's great. I'm glad that he got his goal. It was a good thing. I hope that gives him confidence, because there was a point there where we were watching and he seemed like he just didn't have the confidence. And I'm like, look, if he just gets one, he can get on this roll here and we're going to open the floodgates. But he could never seem to get that one in to start opening it up.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the stuff that Willian does do well versus Fabio is the hold-up play, and he's a stronger guy and he can battle with defenders a little bit more. But that's exactly what's going to happen with Fabio when he grows and bulks up again and he gets that upper body strength. So you add that into the mix as well in 2 or 3 years to add that to everything else that he's got. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I'm excited about him. I think it was another showing tonight. Again, just what you say, Joe, that talks to his promise. And if we go out, if we're able to have this somewhat of a swan song towards the end of the season, he could go on a little run and get in 2, 3, 4 more goals. And you look at that body of work over the season and you'd say he's done really well. So let's see, it could well really suit him, this running, and especially if he's got those players around him. If it's the 4-2-3-1 with the creative players around him, I think he could finish really strong.
So judging from Johnny's injury, are you comfortable going into next year with Aitnery holding down the left back spot, maybe Marcel if he's hurt, or do they need to look somewhere else?
I think you need another piece. I like Aitnery a lot. I'm a huge fan. I like him. I think he has a lot of promise, but he's young and he's just like a little rough around the edges for me. Like he needs to polish it up a little bit, and you can't just depend on him being the only guy at this point. So that's my concerns, but I really like him. I want to see him play more even now. But I wouldn't. I want to see. Okay, this is a good point because we're at the end of the season, and like I was saying before, you're not in fear of relegation, but you're not trying to really win anything. Let them play. Let them get the experience now and have the time, get the minutes, and figure it out. And from these next 7 games left, we'll figure out if we need somebody else, or we can feel confident that we can polish him up in the summer, and maybe he will be the guy. But you need that to see that, right?
I think the context of signing Marcel last season was perfect, that he was the stopgap until Johnny came back, and there was always the eye on signing a younger left back as kind of heir apparent. It's just been unfortunate that Marcel's been so injury prone, because he could have filled in at left back. He could have probably done a job at left centre back as well if needed. So do they cut the losses on him, just send him off into the sunset and try and get that more reliable veteran role, even if it's that same age, kind of 29, 30, 31, that can come in again based on how Johnny's prognosis is, and whether that nurturing of Out-Nuri goes the same way, that he is more of the squad player challenging for the role behind someone who's more experienced and solid, a little like what we're trying to do with Raul and Fabio.
There's been a couple other rumors that were going around this week. The first one was Wolves looking at a $15 million pound Ollie McBurney from Sheffield United, which I think we're all in agreement they're going down. So they'll probably be looking to sell some guys. And then also, take this for what it's worth, there was a report that Isaac Bergman Johansson from somewhere in Sweden was that Wolves were in negotiation for him. And now you'll probably know this, Paul. He's the son of a former Wolves midfielder.
That's right. It was Joey Gudjonsson who signed for us on loan in the season we went up via the playoffs, which was 2003-04. I think he was a combative midfielder. Joey Gudjonsson was. So yeah, that's why he's more called Johansson instead of Joey's son with the Scandinavian naming convention. Yeah. But yeah, he's a local. In effect, he's a local lad because he was born in Sutton Coldfield. Because Joey Gudjonsson was at the Villa prior to us. So obviously he was local, born in the area and everything. So it's a neat little backstory behind that particular rumor.
Now he's another 18-year-old. We can't be expecting too much of him early on. But would you like that signing?
I haven't really delved into his pedigree or the infamous YouTube clip of highlights, but it's
which everybody always, this guy's perfect.
Always.
After watching my 3 minutes on YouTube. This is going to be great.
I've not signed him on Football Manager even, so I can't give any of that knowledge. But it's going to be an interesting summer because we've all got that to play with in terms of work permits with the EU and nationalities and everything. So whether his ancestry in the Midlands helps that he's actually British born, I don't know. There's an interesting subplot to that as well. But it's not surprising that you get the types of these name mentioned that are younger, like Hoover was last year, Out-Nuri. They've definitely got their eye on those types of players as well.
I have a question for you guys. Okay. How do you, because I'm not super familiar with it, but I know that they were just talking about changing some of the fair play rules. And how do you think that'll impact the summer? Will those changes occur before the summer? And will that allow us to open up the wallet a little bit?
I think since they're not playing European football this next year, that wouldn't really come into play. Am I right with that, Paul?
As it stands now, it would have done, yeah. But as the rules change going forwards, I don't think it's been ratified yet, Joe. But if it goes through, I think it would allow a great deal more flexibility in terms of spend. I don't think it would allow for a full kind of opening up the checkbook and away we go. And as with all of these things, it's probably designed with the top 4 in mind, so the rich get richer, unfortunately.
Of course. Yeah.
But you've heard these rumblings somewhat this summer that we may have more of a free rein in the transfer market. And especially goes back to the McBurney rumor that it could well be a case that there's players available that need to be sold, and for that reason it's going to devalue the market somewhat, so that these players that would have been last year, the season before, they may have been going for, say, 5 million more. This summer, you could well have that kind of deflation in value, but more activity based off the back of that, and checkbooks opening somewhat if the financial fair play rules do relax. But I was taking a look at Ollie McBurney because I was like, yeah, maybe if it was last year and he came up to the Premier League and he scored a few goals, maybe he's that type of player that could be a good fit between Raul and Fabio as that second guy. But then I was like, has he come through the Sheffield United ranks and looked on Wikipedia, and he actually cost 19 million.
Wow.
From Swansea to go to Sheffield United. And I was like, 90 million. And again, that type of stuff puts Fabio's valuation into context. That's 19 million from McBurney. And you got Fabio, I know I'd rather have. And I don't like McBurney because he fits into that category of player that I can't stand. And it's those that don't smile enough on the pitch. It really gets me. It really gets me. You got McBurney's the same. He's like a sour-faced, like runty, and I just can't stand him. And the same goes for Chris Wood. Chris Wood at Burnley as well. He's the same.
Not our Chris Wood.
Yeah, no, not Chris Wood. He's always smiling. But yeah, Chris Wood, the Burnley. What's the other guy at Burnley? There with the forward who always scores against us. He's the same. Richarlison at Everton. Can't stand him because he doesn't smile. So my criteria for every summer signing is they've got to be a nice, smiling young man.
Seems legit.
I like it.
So now we'd have three things. Are you a Mendes client? Are you from Portugal? Do you smile a lot?
No, but I get it. I like it because I say the same thing, man. Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Steelers, he always says, we want volunteers, not hostages. And if you're looking grumpy on the pitch, maybe you don't want to be there. And I want guys that want to play for the team. And that's it. Like, and the guys that are having fun usually want to play for the team, and they look like it. Like, you can see it on their faces, and that's great. Like, the positivity from that is always what I want to see in the team. So, yeah, I get it. I agree.
Ashley Barnes from Burnley, that was it.
Oh.
And it's the same, but I think I'm just scarred because he always seems to do a number on us. So
we're Wolverhampton, we're on our way back.
All right, so let's move ahead to Friday's game against Fulham. They've got to get at least a point here from this game. I understand they're 9 points clear. There's 8 games left in the season, but they also have a game in hand against Fulham. But got to get a point here. Do you feel like
lose to Fulham earlier in the season?
No, we drew them, right?
1-0. Neto scored.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was quite attritional, and we weren't at our best. And I think he scored in about the 70th minute, and we didn't make it easy for ourselves. And I think Lookman missed a sitter with about 5 minutes to go and should have tied it up.
That makes sense.
Do you feel like today's performance, any of that's going to carry over into Friday with such a quick turnaround?
I think that if they play like they started today, that yes, I think that it should carry over. I think that they have positivity from today. As much as we might be sad that they didn't get any points from this, I think that I saw things that as a coach, I would be like, this was good. Focus more on this and don't do the bad stuff.
Me too. I think if injuries again are starting to take our toll, it's a quick turnaround. I'd be very much in favour of keeping a relatively same team and just say, to your point, Joe, learn from those mistakes and go again. I think Fulham have got to be looking at this game as one that they can win, and that may play into our hands somewhat. Whereas I was thinking that might be the case against Newcastle, but Newcastle were really just looking for a point against us. They're probably looking for a point against Tottenham yesterday and looking at other games to pick up their wins. I think when Friday comes around, Fulham will be looking at us and thinking that there's a chance for 3 points here. if we start similarly to the way that we did tonight, but better defensively, it's not happened a great deal this season, but if we score first, I think we'd go on and win.
And that's a good point about Fulham looking for 3 points, because they're in a position where they can't be just looking to play for a point, because they're behind the 8 ball. They need to start getting 3 points here. So that is true. They could use that to their advantage. Do you feel like the 4-2-3-1 is what they need again for Friday's game?
I'm like, I don't know. I like more so the idea of playing with formations right now because we have some freedom. But you're right, with us needing at least one out of this. I think we should stick with how we played today and let them try to redo. Don't go changing the formation on them. If you just gave them this and the defense was like trying to work it out, if you start changing more, like, it's too early to introduce more variables. But I do like the idea of changing formations around to try to see what's working right now, because we don't really have much to lose for. There's not much to lose by trying something different. So I could see it either way. You could pull me either way with your response.
I think it's going to be interesting what the prognosis was with Podence coming off, and that's going to have a big impact. So was that plan that he was only going to play a half, or did he get a tweak or something? Is his game time being managed? Because with him coming off, I really don't think at the moment we've got the personnel to play that 3 behind the central striker. So for me, it depends on Podence and his availability. If he's not, I could see the version that we saw towards the end of the game, where it looks like more of a 4-3-3. So you got a centre midfield 3 of then Duncan, Neves, Vitinha up front. Then I'd go Fabio, Neto, and Traore, because I think it does seem that we've got scope at the back that Kilman could come in for size if needed. I'm looking across the other positions on the pitch. There only really seems to be Vitana who can come in the midfield, who could really potentially do a job. So I think it comes down to Podence. If he's not available, I could see that 4-3-3 that finished this game.
I'd like to see Fabio, Vitana, and Kilman all in the lineup in place of Saiz. I almost have to say Neves and Lilin, Jose.
Yeah, Josh, that's funny. I was just going to ask Paul the same thing. Like, you guys are like, we're sold now. We're going to go Silva for the rest of the way. That's it. We're riding it.
It's funny.
So. Yeah, if that chance had dropped to Silva in the first half, the one that rebounded out to Neto, would he have put that away and then gone on and got that second as well? But then this game was, again, at least Willian had some chances. That one he carved out in the first one, and then that one that forced the save. So I don't know. I'm tempted. I don't want Friday to be, because I feel we'll be under pressure. I still think we need that out ball somewhat. And at least Willian gives us that presence a little more than Fabio. Fabio maybe keep up the super sub role. Let's see how that fares. But yeah, I think he's definitely closer to starting, I think. So we'll see.
Hey, let's hear predictions
for Friday against Fulham. I go 2-0. And Silva gets, I think he comes on as a super sub and he gets like 75. And I think that Neto gets the first one, but like late in the first half.
Interesting. I can see us winning, but I'm going to temper my own expectations somewhat. And with Fulham having to go for it, at least get something out of the game, I'm going for a draw, 1 each.
I was thinking about that as well, but I think I'll be a little more positive. I'll go 1-0 Wolves, because, I'm still going with my thing. I'm not picking them to score more than 2 goals.
Okay. Who scores? Who do you got?
I think it'll be on a counter, and I think it'll be a little bit later. So give me Neto on the counter.
Okay.
Oh, I was going for Neto as well. I think he's due a goal.
I need his mom, though, to maybe stop.
Yes.
Like, Stop telling him to shoot so much. Like,
not when it's wide or so high, buddy.
Miss Neto, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, it's great you're supporting your son. Yeah, we'd love to see him score more too, but maybe not take so many shots
on target, or just aim them a little better.
When you look into the stats of Whole Lot of Wolves, I think we've got a 0.1% of listeners from Portugal. So
how is that possible?
Based on that, Josh has determined that is in fact Neto's mom. So
it's a good prediction.
The science says that's probably likely, right?
It's somebody's mom for sure, and maybe not Neto's, but somebody on the team's mom for sure.
Yeah, maybe it's Nuno's mom. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, what no stupid questions do we have this week, Paul?
That part of the show where you, dear listeners, are encouraged to get in touch and ask us anything you like about the Wolves, be it about the match day experience, something from our history or a past player, or if you're a new fan with a question that you think is elementary school level, you can ask us in a judgment-free setting, either via our Facebook, Twitter, or by emailing hello@wholelotofwolves.com. And this week, not a no stupid question as such, but NAG or King Wolf 84 on Twitter was in touch, and he asked us whether we were able to catch the Wolves women game yesterday. So we've touched on this briefly in past episodes, but Wolves women, they were doing great in their league campaigns. They're on the rise through the pyramid in the women's games, but have now had 2 seasons curtailed due to the pandemic. So this means the FA Cup this season is their only remaining football. So it was a thrilling penalty shootout win. So they go through to the next round, and definitely kudos to the club really for everything that went into the publicity of the game, the live report, the live stream even, so you could pick up the match and watch it. So well done, Wolves women, on to the next round of the FA Cup.
That's great news.
Congrats. That's awesome. I love seeing that they're so supportive and have the women's club, and they do good promotion for it. I'm proud of them for doing that.
All right, Joe, as we bring this episode to a close, can you let listeners know how to get in touch with you, and you can talk about your podcast that you have as well?
Yeah, my buddy and I, Joey, we do a weekly podcast where we talk about the Fast and the Furious movies, not just about the Fast and the Furious movies, but about other movies related to them. It's a lot of screwy stuff. We goof around a lot. You can find us pretty much on where you find podcasts, like Stitcher, Google Play, Apple iTunes. Our podcast is Too Fast, Too Forever. If you want to talk to us, we're Too Fast, Too Forever on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, /Too Fast, Too Forever on everything. Shoot us a message on Facebook. You can find me there. And from there, you'll find my Twitter and stuff as well. Yeah, you can contact us whenever you want, and go check out Too Fast, Too Forever. It's on the Cage Club Podcast Network. That's cageclub.me.
And now, Joe, you have to do some work over there, because we're starting to get some hosts here that live in Connecticut. So you guys have to create one of the supporters branches over there.
I looked into this when I was first researching Wolves, because I'm gonna try to figure out if this is the right clan for me. I was looking around, and the closest one we got is the New York chapter. And yeah, I didn't know that we had more supporters in Connecticut. And if we do, that's awesome. I would love to have a Connecticut chapter. That would be a ton of fun. I'm in New Haven, so I don't know where anybody else is in relative to New Haven in Connecticut, but it's not a very big state, so it's not hard for us to meet up. I was planning to go to some of the New York meetup things, but then pandemic broke, so that was bad. And what else? Oh, I was going to go to the Premier League mornings in Philadelphia, the fan, what is it called? Fan Fest, right?
Yeah,
what do they call it?
Yeah, the Premier League mornings, yeah.
Yeah, whatever they call the Fan Fest thing of it. I had tickets to the one in Philadelphia in April, but then pandemic broke right before we went. I had tickets for me and my wife, and we were going to go down there and meet my buddy that I talked about earlier that loves Manchester United, and we were going to all meet up there and go watch some games, but I'm sad I couldn't do that. Hopefully.
In general, there was going to be probably the best turnout from Wolves across the country at that one, so
I know.
It's a real shame that got curtailed. So hopefully next season there's another good one at somewhat of a central place that we can all get to. That would be awesome.
I'd love it.
A preseason game in Houston, Texas, right, Paul?
Oh,
Yeah, I think that might come a little too soon. Yeah, maybe.
You never know.
One day,
We're gonna keep the faith.
we'll get there. It'll get there. The club will get there. I can smell it. Can you smell it? Like I can feel it in my bones, man. I do.
All I smell is the Indian food that I had for dinner tonight. But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's brewing. Like there's a feel here that like that. I don't know. I'm on board, and I think that it'll happen.
Listeners, thanks for your continued support. If you're tuning in for the first time, please hit that subscribe button, like the podcast, share it if you can. Give us a 5-star review on your podcast listening platform of choice, because this helps us a ton with our exposure. We'll be back next week to review everything from that Craven Cottage game, and then look forward to welcoming Sheffield United to town on a rare Saturday 9 a.m. our time kickoff. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look after you and your pack. In Nuno we trust, and up the walls. Get well soon, Johnny.